I remember sitting across from her at the kitchen table, my hands shaking, my voice barely steady, telling her I was willing to do whatever it took to save our marriage. She sighed, not cried, not looked away, just sighed, like I was exhausting her. I already said sorry, she said flatly. What else do you want from me? That sentence hit harder than the affair itself. I asked her if she understood how much it hurt, if she felt any real guilt, if losing my trust meant anything to her at all. She shrugged. You're choosing to stay stuck, she replied. I'm trying to move forward. Move forward. As if betrayal was a scheduling issue. As if my pain was an inconvenience she wanted to get past. I told her I couldn't just turn it off. That every time I looked at her, I saw lies. Late nights. Messages I wasn't supposed to read. She rolled her eyes. This is why we can't heal, she said. You keep bringing it up. That's when I realized something terrifying. I wasn't trying to save our marriage. I was trying to convince the woman who broke it to care, and she didn't. She wasn't fighting for us. She was waiting for me to stop hurting quietly enough to make her comfortable again. And in that moment, sitting there begging for empathy, I felt smaller than I ever had in my life. Before everything came apart, I used to believe we were solid. Not perfect, but real. We had routines. Coffee in the mornings. Lazy Sundays on the couch. Conversations about the future that felt safe enough to trust. Or at least, I thought they were. Looking back now, I realize how much of that stability lived only in my head. She had already started pulling away long before the affair. Less eye contact. Shorter answers. Her laugh stopped reaching her eyes. When I talked about work or stress, she nodded without really listening. I told myself this was normal. Marriage gets quiet sometimes. Life gets busy. People go through phases. That's what I kept saying. When I tried to reconnect, she said I was overthinking. When I asked if something was wrong, she smiled and said, "Why are you always looking for problems?" So I stopped asking. I became easier, quieter, more accommodating. I convinced myself love meant patience, not realizing I was slowly training myself to accept emotional distance as normal. What hurts the most now isn't just that she cheated. It's that by the time it happened, she was already gone. I just hadn't caught up yet. At that point, I still believed we were standing on the same ground. I didn't know I was already alone. When the distance between us kept growing, I didn't question her. I questioned myself. I replayed every argument in my head, every moment I came home tired, every time I chose work over another conversation that felt already half dead. Maybe I wasn't attentive enough. Maybe I stopped being interesting. Maybe I got too comfortable. That's what I told myself. I started apologizing for things I didn't fully understand. For her silence. For her mood. For the tension I couldn't name but felt everywhere. When she snapped at me, I assumed I deserved it. When she pulled away, I figured I must have done something wrong. She never reassured me. She just let me spiral. Sometimes she'd say, "You're just insecure lately," or "You're imagining problems again." And somehow, that made sense to me. I tried harder, listened more, asked less, smiled even when something inside me felt off. I became careful with my words, afraid that one wrong sentence might push her further away. What I didn't realize was this. I was taking responsibility for a distance I didn't create. While I was busy fixing myself, she was already emotionally checked out. I thought love meant self-reflection, but what I was really doing was slowly disappearing to keep her comfortable, and she never once tried to stop it. There were signs, clear ones. I just refused to call them what they were. She started guarding her phone like it held state secrets. Screen face down, notifications off, a quick swipe anytime I walked into the room. When I asked who she was texting, she'd shrug. Just people from work. That answer used to satisfy me. Then she began going out more, sudden errands, late dinners, needing space. When I offered to come with her, she'd say she wanted time alone. I told myself that was healthy. She stopped sharing her day with me. No random stories. No small details. Just short answers and distant looks. I told myself couples go through phases. She laughed at messages that weren't mine. Smiled at her phone in ways I hadn't seen in months. I noticed. I just pretended not to. Every instinct told me something was wrong, but I kept silencing it. I didn't want to be that guy. The jealous husband. The insecure one. So I rationalized everything. Longer showers? Stress. New clothes? Confidence. Emotional coldness? My fault again. Looking back, it's terrifying how convincing denial can be. Because once you start explaining away disrespect, you train yourself to accept it. and I had no idea how much worse it was about to get. She kept telling me everything was fine. Not once, constantly. Whenever I tried to talk, she'd reach for my hand and say, "I promise, there's nothing going on." Her voice was calm, practiced, almost rehearsed. She promised she loved me, promised she was just tired, promised things would get better once work slowed down. And I wanted to believe her so badly that I ignored how those promises felt. Empty. There was no warmth behind them, no emotion, just words said to end the conversation. She'd say, "Trust me," but her eyes never stayed on mine. She'd say, "I'm not going anywhere," then pull away when I tried to hug her. I started noticing how quickly she used promises as shields. Any question I asked was met with reassurance instead of clarity. Any concern I raised was softened with vague comfort, never real explanation. At night, lying next to her, I'd listen to her breathe and feel like I was next to a stranger. The words said marriage. The silence said exit plan. I told myself relationships aren't perfect, that love sometimes goes quiet. But deep down, something felt off. Because real promises don't feel like pressure. And hers felt like something she was using to keep me from looking closer. Once I felt her slipping away, I panicked. I didn't get angry. I didn't accuse her. I tried to fix everything. I planned dates she used to love, cooked dinners she barely touched, left notes on the counter hoping she'd smile. I asked her what she needed from me. More attention? More space? More effort? She always answered the same way. I don't know. So I tried everything. I listened more, spoke less, stopped bringing up issues so we wouldn't fight, convincing myself that patience was love. When she came home late, I told myself not to ask questions. When she seemed distant, I blamed stress. I bent myself into someone easier to live with, someone quieter, someone less demanding, someone who didn't expect emotional presence. I thought if I became better, she would come back. But love isn't something you save alone. And the harder I tried to hold us together, the more it felt like she was already letting go. I was fighting for a marriage she had quietly stopped protecting. When things kept getting worse, I suggested therapy. I told myself that if we had a neutral space, someone would finally make her see what was happening. She agreed almost too easily. That should have been my first warning. In the sessions, she spoke calmly, carefully, like someone choosing every word to avoid blame. She talked about feeling lost, about needing space, about how relationships change over time. But she never said sorry. Not once. When the therapist asked about accountability, she redirected. "I don't think blame helps. I don't like being made the bad guy. I just want peace." Every problem somehow circled back to me. My tone, my expectations, my reactions. I started apologizing in sessions for things I didn't even understand anymore. Therapy wasn't about healing. It became a stage where she appeared reasonable, and I looked emotional. We didn't work through pain. We managed optics. I walked out of those sessions exhausted, confused about my own feelings, and quietly learning something terrifying. She didn't want to repair the marriage. She wanted permission to leave it, without guilt. After therapy started, something changed in her. Not relief, not closeness, irritation. Small things suddenly bothered her. The way I asked how her day was, the way I tried to talk at night. Even my silence annoyed her. If I checked in emotionally, she sighed. If I stayed quiet, she accused me of being distant. I could never get it right. She snapped more often, rolled her eyes when I spoke, answered with one-word replies. Sometimes she'd say, "Why are you always analyzing everything?" Other times, "Can't you just be normal for once?" It felt like my presence itself was exhausting to her. She guarded her phone like it contained something fragile, turned the screen away, stepped outside to take calls. When I noticed, she didn't reassure me. She got angry. "You're paranoid. You're creating problems out of nothing." Her patience for me was gone. And the strangest part? She didn't seem afraid of losing me. She seemed annoyed that I hadn't disappeared on my own. That's when I realized something was shifting, not toward honesty, but toward contempt. By then, every day felt dangerous. Not because we fought, but because I was afraid to speak at all. I measured every word before saying it, replayed sentences in my head, wondered how she might twist them. If I sounded concerned, I was controlling. If I stayed calm, I was cold. There was no safe version of me anymore. I learned to read her moods the moment she walked in. The sound of her keys told me everything. Some nights, she ignored me completely. Other nights, she exploded over nothing. And when I asked what was wrong, she said the same thing every time. "Nothing. You're imagining it. I started doubting my instincts. My gut screamed that something wasn't right. But I kept telling myself I was being insecure. I apologized constantly. For my tone. For my timing. For emotions I didn't even express. I wasn't a husband anymore. I was a guest in my own marriage. Careful not to disturb the person who no longer wanted me there. And the worst part? She watched me shrink and never once tried to stop it. It hit me like a punch I never saw coming. I wasn't just hurt. I wasn't just disappointed. I was completely alone. I found the messages, the calls, the late-night excuses that finally made sense. She didn't deny it. She didn't cry. She didn't even flinch. I said it happened. I'm not sorry, she said calmly, almost bored. It's over. Move on. And just like that, everything I had been holding on to, the hope, the rationalizations, the promises she made, shattered. I realized she had never been on the same side as me. While I tried to fix us, she had been protecting herself all along. Every apology I offered, every effort I made to bridge the distance, every tear I held back, it didn't matter. Her absence wasn't just physical. It was emotional. She had already checked out long before I even knew the fight had begun. Sitting there, staring at the truth, I felt the full weight of it. I had been alone in the marriage the entire time, and the person I loved had been gone, while I was still trying to save something that wasn't there. I finally confronted her. The moment I had rehearsed 100 times. Why? I asked, my voice breaking. Did it mean anything to you? Do you feel guilty? She looked at me. Not surprised. Not scared. Not even ashamed. Just cold. I don't regret it, she said, almost like she was reading a fact from a page. I felt nothing. It just happened. And I'm not sorry. Her words hit me harder than any slap, punch, or betrayal ever could. I searched her face, hoping for a flicker of remorse, a shadow of guilt, a single tear. Nothing. You're overreacting, she added casually. It didn't mean anything. I don't owe you guilt. I don't owe you explanations. And in that moment, I understood everything. The marriage wasn't broken because of a mistake. It was dead because she had no intention of caring. No apologies. No shame. No empathy. I realized I had been begging someone to care about a life and love she had already walked away from emotionally. And finally, for the first time, the weight of clarity hit me. Cheating without guilt is worse than cheating with it. Because guilt is the one thing that could have made it matter. But there was nothing. Nothing but cold finality. Her words replayed in my mind like a broken record. I don't regret it. I felt nothing. It just happened. And I'm not sorry. I couldn't breathe. My chest ached. Every memory, every shared laugh, every moment I thought we were together suddenly felt like a lie. I tried to speak, but my throat closed. I tried to touch her hand, but it felt like reaching for smoke. I sank into the couch, head in my hands, and let it all come crashing down. Years of denial, of rationalization, of trying to fix something that wasn't mine to fix. It hit me all at once. I had begged, compromised, and sacrificed, and she had walked through it all like nothing had changed. I thought I knew heartbreak. I thought I understood betrayal. I was wrong. This was different. Cold. Unforgiving. Final. She didn't just cheat. She erased the emotional foundation I thought we had. And the truth settled in. There would be no apologies. No remorse. No chance to make it right. I felt hollow, shattered, and utterly alone. But in that collapse, a tiny spark of clarity flickered. I deserved better. I couldn't chase someone who felt nothing. After the collapse, something shifted inside me. For weeks, I had tried everything. Apologies, patience, understanding, even silence, hoping she'd show a flicker of remorse. Nothing. Then it hit me. I was chasing someone who had already left, emotionally and morally. Someone who didn't feel shame. Someone who didn't care. I realized I had a choice. I could continue begging for scraps of empathy. I could keep shrinking myself, hoping she'd suddenly remember what we had. Or I could stop. I chose myself. No yelling. No ultimatums. No dramatic confrontations. Just calm, quiet clarity. I stopped explaining. Stopped apologizing for feelings that were mine to feel. Stopped bending to fit the mold of someone she wanted me to be. For the first time in years, I let my own needs, my own dignity matter. I didn't hate her. I didn't even feel the desire to make her pay. I simply stopped chasing. And in that choice, I found the first taste of freedom. The first glimmer of self-respect I had almost forgotten existed. Because sometimes, walking away calmly is the only way to win. Once I stopped chasing, a strange peace settled in. I didn't call. I didn't text. I didn't wait by the phone. I allowed myself to step back completely. The more I detached, the clearer everything became. Her words, her actions, her coldness. I could finally see them without the fog of hope. No more rationalizing. No more self-blame. No more begging for a love that had never been mutual. I stopped analyzing her moods. Stopped walking on eggshells. Stopped trying to anticipate her needs while ignoring my own. The absence of her attention no longer felt like rejection. It felt like freedom. For the first time, I remembered who I was outside of her. The man who had been patient, kind, and caring, not to earn her love, but because that was who I was. Distance gave me clarity. Detachment gave me power. And with that power came a truth I had ignored for too long. Some people will never value you. Some marriages can't be saved. Some betrayals aren't about mistakes. They're about character. I chose to respect myself enough to walk away. Looking back, the lesson is painfully simple. When someone cheats and feels no guilt, believe them. No excuses. No rationalizations. No bargaining. Remorse matters more than explanations. A heart that feels nothing can't be repaired. Love without empathy is not love. It's emotional abandonment. I spent years questioning myself, apologizing for feelings that weren't wrong, and begging for a connection that didn't exist. I learned the hard way that self-respect begins when you stop begging someone to care. Walking away calmly wasn't defeat. It was clarity. It was freedom. It was the first time I truly honored myself. To anyone watching, reading, or going through something similar, don't chase the indifferent. Don't justify what they refuse to feel. Protect your heart. Protect your dignity. Because cheating hurts. But cheating without guilt? That is the final betrayal. It's a cold truth, but it's also a powerful one. Once you see it clearly, you can finally choose yourself.